Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to the Intuitive Marriage Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Pott. I'm an intuitive guide and certified marriage mentor, and I'm here to guide you on a journey of self-love and awareness. Together, we'll explore how tuning into your intuition can create a deeper, more meaningful connection with yourself and your husband. And if you are new here, welcome. I'm so grateful you found me. This week, we're diving into a topic I think we can all relate to: misunderstandings and disagreements. Let's stop those arguments before they start, right? We're going to go over how to use communication, expectations, and accountability in your marriage. So, let's be honest. These moments, these disagreements, they are a part of every marriage. But here's the thing: disagreements don't have to spiral into full-blown arguments. I'll be sharing some insights, a personal story, and ways that we can bring three of our foundational principles: communication, expectations, and accountability into moments of disagreement to help transform them into moments of growth. So let's get into it, shall we? So let's start off with story time. Okay, I'm going to discuss a personal moment of miscommunication in my marriage. So this is a little tough. I like to bring you guys along on my journey. I figure I'm only just a few steps ahead of everybody else and probably a few steps behind on a lot of people. But I like to share what I have experienced and what I continue to experience because I believe it's an ongoing journey. So let's start out with a story today, shall we? Recently, my husband and I had a moment where a simple miscommunication quickly snowballed. It was last Sunday, and, you know, it was in the morning time. We were getting up and making the bed. We both woke up in a good mood. We were laughing, just sharing things on social media, started talking about something. And you know how it goes. One person says something in passing, the other um, interprets it a different way. And suddenly, what started as nothing really kind of grew into hurt feelings and responses that, could have probably been handled a little better. But, now you're upset, you're confused, you're a little bit pissed maybe, and it has kind of set the tone for the day. So you're upset, in our case, I guess he said something that in response to a question I asked him, and I guess it struck a nerve. Though I don't think that he actually realized it at the time. Um, we are wired a little bit differently. And so I don't think he understood, I guess, how it affected me. And I didn't want to have anything escalate because we're really good about that. And I was just, we just kind of, some things were a little bit said, and we just kind of were both, kind of like I said, it kind of set the tone. So rather than pausing to process, like I responded defensively, which only led to a back and forth that left us both feeling misunderstood. It wasn't anything crazy, nothing super hurtful, but it was hurtful enough that I just kind of felt I was a little pissed. I was a little upset. So I'm sure we've all had these moments, right? It happens. We're two individuals coming together, and it's bound to happen. And I just want to be real with you. It does. It happens. I think I have an absolutely perfect marriage. But shit still happens between us. We have different thoughts. We have things that you just don't even realize that would even affect the other person sometimes because we're still learning and growing all the time. And what helped us work through this was taking a step back and just reflecting on how I can't speak for my husband at this point, but on how I communicated. And I personally always need time to digest what was said, why I was affected by what was said. Like, is this a me problem from past traumas that I'm still working through? Or am I truly upset and is it justifiable that I was hurt by his words? And is it something I feel like I really want to talk about? Or is it maybe something that I just sit on? And, sometimes you can digest things and go, "Ah, you know what, that was kind of me anyways." And sometimes it's just a quick apology and we move on and there's really not much of a discussion. And some things, if you don't address them, the small things they can build over time. And like I said, if they're not addressed, then they will arise as other things. And this is something I've been working on for years from past relationships, etc. But having difficult conversations is never something I've enjoyed or I felt have ever really been great at. I despise conflict. And in the past, with past relationship situations, things that were brought up became a bigger problem. So if I felt like I wanted to communicate my concern, then it became a bigger problem. And so I just learned it was easier just to stay quiet, which is awful, but it's what I did to cope. And I found that over time, if I didn't communicate my feelings and my concerns and my hurts, that there was so much hurt and misunderstanding that, like, it turns into resentment and it just kind of chips away at what you have together. So I don't want that to happen. Now, in this marriage, in this relationship, I know that my husband respects and values my feelings enough to have an adult conversation. We have gotten to that point. We have always been at that point where we are both listening with love, even though the issue may be about not feeling valued. We hold a special, safe space for each other to express our feelings. But in saying that, it doesn't make it any easier to start an uncomfortable conversation. So I poured us a glass of wine, you know, uh, Sunday afternoon, and we put some music on. And I said I would like to discuss, what happened last Sunday and why what was said, why did it bother me as much as it did? And I wanted him to understand that. So we were pretty quiet around each other for that day. I'll be honest, I'm a little bit of a sulker. I'm a Cancer, so I do have a hard shell and I'm kind of soft inside. Actually, kind of soft on the outside too, but that's for a whole other story. But I just get quiet. Um, I don't know if I guess it's my way of maybe sulking. I have to reflect. I go internal and it's just my way of processing the conflict or the disagreement. And I really take a deep look, right? And I really see my place in what happened, what was said, how did I contribute to that? But then we move on as if nothing has happened, right? Like, so it wasn't drawn out, it wasn't brought up again. There was some quiet, and then life just kind of moved on as normal, and we just reacted the same as we always do. But a few days later, I did mention that I would like to address what transpired the previous weekend, as I felt it was something that I needed to talk about. And my husband's just like, okay, baby, like, you just let me know when. So I worked and, worked. And today was the right day. It just kind of came up um, and we just spoke about how much we both value our communication and how we make the time to connect and ask those difficult questions. We are grateful that we are open to express our expectations with each other. And when expectations fall to the side or if they change unexpectedly, then we're honest with each other and we aren't afraid to hold each other accountable when necessary. And that's because we've communicated that all along. So that's really when I was realizing, when I created the 12 foundations, which I've spoken about in the last episode. And I don't know if it was the last episode, the one before, I believe. But, I realized how powerful these three specific foundations are to have in our marriage: communication, expectations, and accountability, and how they can help turning misunderstandings into meaningful connection instead of conflict and an argument. So let's talk about foundation one out of the three, which is communication. Communication is one of our core foundations, and it's truly the bridge to understanding your misunderstandings that are happening. Because, at the end of the day, we're human. So we are always going to have misunderstandings and we're going to not always see eye to eye. We are each coming from our own perspectives, our thoughts, and we all have individual emotions and feelings. So, in our situation, taking time to reflect on how we were communicating made all the difference. So, here are a few tips to make communication in disagreements more constructive. First of all, pause and breathe. When emotions start to rise, a quick pause is like a reset button. Take a deep breath and focus on what you want to communicate, not just the reaction. For us, stepping away for a moment, few days, few hours, whatever it takes, this time it took a few days, helped us come back with more openness. Second, use I statements. This is very important. I did a lot of reflection on how I wanted to approach and discuss how I felt and how I was going to word that. Expressing how you feel without placing blame can shift the tone. So try phrases like, I feel hurt when, instead of, you hurt me by. This small change keeps the conversation from turning into blame, and it lets your partner into your world more gently. It's how you're feeling, anyways, not necessarily about them. So don't point the finger at them. Let them know how you felt by the actions that they did, but don't point your finger in a blaming way. Now, listen. Really, really, really listen. This would be the third tip under here. When my husband and I took time to truly listen without planning a response, we each felt heard and valued. Apologies for hurt feelings were expressed and understood. And this can diffuse tension and allow space for understanding. Okay, so let's move on to the second foundation in this conversation: expectations. Sometimes disagreements stem from unspoken expectations. I realized I was holding an expectation of how he should communicate, but I hadn't shared that with him. He can't read my mind. Expectations can set us up for disappointment if they are not clearly expressed. So, here are a few ways to clarify expectations with your partner. One, checking in regularly. Have conversations about expectations before they turn into frustrations. Try a weekly check in or daily, whatever works for you, but weekly is a great time where you can talk about your needs and hopes for the relationship. Does your spouse need any support from you this week? And how can you help? What do you need? Can your spouse support you in any way? This keeps expectations fresh and realistic. So make sure you're connecting with each other. Secondly, clarify assumptions. If you notice resentment brewing, ask yourself, did I communicate my expectations? Or am I assuming they should just know? So there's that crystal ball. I know the crystal ball is broken, honey. You have to, like, yes, there's intuition. And this is all about this getting to understand and know your partner on a deeper level. But reality is we need to communicate. We're not just going to know things. So are you just assuming? Clarity can often prevent disagreements. So be clear. You might be right. You might be assuming and you might be right, but just have that out in the open. And thirdly, expect flexibility. We're all growing, changing individuals. It's natural for our expectations to shift over time. By staying open and flexible, you can create a space for your relationship to evolve together. Now, in my situation, once I reflected on this, I realized that my hurt feelings were tied to an unspoken expectation. By voicing this, we were able to find a new understanding. I kind of assumed he understood something, how I felt about a certain something. And that wasn't the case. And that's why that misunderstanding resulted in my feelings getting hurt. And, we discussed how both of us responded and whatnot. But it was because there was an unspoken expectation. And let's talk about the third foundation in this conversation: accountability. Accountability is about owning our role in the relationship. So in our case, I had to reflect on the way I initially reacted. Sometimes it's tough to admit our part, especially when we feel hurt. But taking ownership of our own actions can be incredibly healing. Here's how accountability can shift the dynamic in disagreements. Reflect on your part. Take a few moments to reflect on how you contributed to the situation. This doesn't mean taking all the blame, but being honest about your actions. After our disagreement, I realized my response could have been more understanding, and that made it easier to open up. Apologize meaningfully. A sincere apology can clear the air and bring you closer, but it's got to be sincere. Focus on specific actions, like I'm sorry for responding defensively, rather than a general, hey, sorry. And commit to positive change. Accountability is also about looking forward. So think about how you can approach similar situations differently. In my case, I committed to practicing more patience and checking in with my own emotions before reacting. Tips to incorporate these foundations into your marriage. Number 1, weekly connection routine. So dedicate some time this week and each week moving forward to connect and talk openly. This can be over a cup of tea, maybe a glass of wine, during a walk, or any time that's free of distractions. Make it a safe space for both of you to express yourselves. That's very important. Hold that space and make it a safe space for your partner. Number 2, expectations. Expectation reset conversations. I don't know how you want to call that. It's having those conversations about your expectations as a couple, as a married couple. Set a time every few months. Quarterly is a great time to talk about shifting expectations, maybe the seasonal changes. What do we've got going on? What's coming up? Life changes, and so do we. Things happen, we evolve. Being proactive with these conversations keeps you both on the same page and allows for lesser disagreements. And number 3, the accountability mirror, where you're looking at yourself. Create a habit of self reflection after disagreements. Ask yourself what role you played and how you can take accountability. Growth is an ongoing journey, and this practice will strengthen your connection over time. Because we all play a part, it's very easy to point fingers and lay the blame on your partner or someone else. But we all contribute. What my parents used to say, hey, it takes 2 to tango. And it really does. What was your contribution in that misunderstanding, disagreement? Okay, guys. So, as we wrap up today, I want to really thank you for joining me in this episode. And I'm just so excited. I'm still around. You guys are still here. My show's growing. I love it. Thank you. Please share. And, just remember for today, disagreements don't have to divide us. They can actually bring us closer if we approach them with the right perspective. So, by focusing on communication, clarifying your expectations, and taking accountability, we can turn conflicts into opportunities for deeper connection. So, guys, if today's episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Try incorporating one of these practices into your marriage this week and see how it feels. Let's continue building these foundations together, one day at a time, one conversation, and one growth moment at a time. So please come check me out. I'm Amanda Pott on Facebook. It's mostly whatever I'm feeling at the moment. Miss ADHD over here. Smout my life. You'll see some stuff with me and my husband, Barry. And come follow us on the Intuitive Marriage Podcast and email me at the Intuitive Marriage Podcast at gmail.com. Love to hear from you. So until next time, beautiful souls, take care and keep nurturing that